What is the good life? Like, if I were to survey a mass amount of people, what would they say the good life is? How would they describe it? Is it a life of freedom? Is it a life of joy? Is it a life where I'm famous and have tons of followers on social media? Is it a life of meaning or significance? How would people describe the good life? And the reason why I think this is an important question is because I believe that we are all chasing after the good life. Like, we are all chasing after this thing to provide meaning and significance to our life. We don't want to waste our lives, right? We don't want to live this boring, meaningless, insignificant life. We want a life that is good, that is great, that people can look at and admire. We want to live the good life. And think about how culture is kind of selling you this idea of the good life. Like, think of the covers of magazines. Think of the advertisements that you see on YouTube. Think about the commercials that you see on TV. Or think about even your experience walking through the mall. Like, what do you see on the giant posters and the advertisements all around the mall? They are selling you something. They are selling you a version of the good life. Essentially, all of these advertisements and culture are saying, if you buy my good or my service or my product, or if you subscribe to my thing, then you will achieve this life that we are advertising. Like, maybe it's a shampoo commercial or like a vacuum commercial or like literally like a commercial for a restaurant. But what do they show in this life? They show a happy person, very good looking. They have pretty much everything they could ever want. They are selling you a version of the good life. Like, literally the other day I'm watching YouTube, I'm watching like Mr. Beast or something like that. He's like eating like $100,000 gold ice cream or something like that. I'm just minding my own business, right? And then you know how YouTube ads just pop up and it's like the worst thing ever? This ad pops up, okay? There's this girl, she's sitting in a library and her phone starts vibrating, an alarm is going off, and she looks and it's 3 p.m. And she stands up and she's like, ah, it's 3 p.m. And she grabs her friend next to her and shakes her and she's like, what? It's 3 p.m. And they run and they grab a third friend and they shake her and she's like, what? They're all in the library. It's 3 p.m. And then they're like booking it through this hallway and they get to this big window and they look down and what do they see? They see this jacked, sweaty, super beautiful angel of a construction worker. He's walking, he drops his shovel, he's like strutting his stuff, right? And he's all sweaty because he's been working all hard and he's looking gorgeous. These girls are like gazing at him and he goes to wipe off his sweat, but instead of like grabbing a towel or using the sleeve on his arm, he like lifts up his whole shirt and shows off these like chiseled, like sculpted abs and his like chest, and he's like wiping his sweat and these girls are like, ah! And what's he do? He walks up to this vending machine, he puts some money in there and out comes a Coca-Cola. Now you know where this is going. He cracks open this Coca-Cola. It's like slow motion. It's zooming in on the bottle. There's like condensation on the bottle and he's like drinking this delicious like juice of the gods or like whatever it is. And what is this commercial doing? Essentially, it's selling you a version of the good life. It's saying, hey, if you buy our product, if you buy Coca-Cola, your life is going to look like this. People are going to want to be with you. They're going to think you're gorgeous. You're going to be happy and like, even if you're a sweaty construction worker, like everyone's just gonna love you and it's gonna be awesome. You see, you and I are living in what we would call a consumer culture, where we are constantly being bombarded with different goods and services and subscriptions that are all promising us the good life. If you buy this vacuum, or if you have this shampoo, or whatever, you name it, you will be happy and you will look good and have this meaningful and significant life like they are promising in their ads. We are in this constant search for meaning and significance and purpose in our lives, and our culture is just feeding into that. But we need to ask the question, will we ever truly be satisfied? Will we ever truly have enough? Many studies have shown that in our consumeristic culture, you would think happiness would be on the rise, but actually the opposite tends to be true. What's on the rise? Depression, anxiety, pollution, all of these things that we don't really want. What if I told you that the good life doesn't come from accumulating more and more things? What if I told you it comes from removing those things and replacing them with something better? And it leaves the question, what if there is a practice that we could do that could help us to escape from this life of consumerism, that could help us escape from this life and pursue freedom and pursue joy and meaning in something that is much better? And what if I told you that there is, and that this practice is something that we don't talk about very often, fasting? Now, before we get going on our talk on fasting, remember, we are in a series about spiritual practices, and all of our practices are a means to an end. They are not an end in themselves. So when we talk about fasting, we're not just saying fast for the sake of fasting. That's just called a diet. Jesus isn't like looking here. He's not trying to get like all toned up to go to the beach, or he's not like doing some sort of weird juice cleanse or anything. He's talking about fasting as a spiritual practice. It's a means to an end. It's a means to relationship with God. It's a means to transformation. We are spending time with Jesus, and we are doing the things that Jesus did so that we can be transformed. And Jesus definitely practiced fasting. So, as disciples, as followers of Jesus, maybe we need to look into this and see what that's all about. Jesus practiced fasting. Matthew chapter 4 says this: "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry." Now notice here, this is like a big moment in Jesus' life and ministry. This is like the start of it all. Right before this, Jesus is baptized, and it's like this epic, amazing scene where the Spirit descends on him like a dove, and God the Father's up there, and he's like, "This is my Son who I am well pleased." And this is what happens right after. Jesus goes out into the wilderness, and he fasts for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he goes toe-to-toe with the devil himself. He faces all sorts of temptations, and spoiler alert here, he wins. Now, you may ask yourself, wasn't Jesus weak in this moment? Like, he just didn't eat for 40 days and 40 nights. Isn't he feeling like weak and tired and hangry like I know I would? No. Jesus is not weak in this moment. He is hungry. That's what it says. He's hungry. He's not weak. He's actually very powerful. He is at like the height of his power. He stands toe-to-toe with the devil, and he wins. He faces all sorts of temptation, and he wins. That's the point. And fasting was a very common practice in Jesus' day. For the Jews in Jesus' day, they actually fasted up to 2 times a week. It was like a regular with them. It was a regular habit. It was a regular practice in their day-to-day life. There's festivals and celebrations where they would be constantly fasting. Now you may be asking, is there anywhere in the Bible that commands us to fast? No, it's not in the 10 Commandments. There's no command of Jesus that says you have to fast like every single week or whatever. But the Bible makes it very clear that there is an assumption that the followers of Jesus, the disciples of Jesus, the apprentices of Jesus will fast. Jesus makes it very clear himself that he expects his followers to fast. Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 to 18 says this: "And when you fast," listen to that, "when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." So we see here that Jesus assumes his followers will fast. He's not commanding it, but he does assume it. And this teaching actually falls in the same place as 2 other teachings on 2 other practices, giving and praying, which is very interesting because he says the same thing. He says, you will give, you will pray, you will fast. Isn't that interesting? Because we all agree that giving is a good thing and that people should give of their time and their money and their resources. And we all love praying. We agree that we should be praying. But when it comes to fasting, we get all confused. Like, what do you mean I have to fast? Like, this makes no sense. This is legalistic and I don't like it. Why do I have to fast? But we have no reason to exclude fasting any more than we would prayer. He says, when you give, when you pray, when you fast. Jesus clearly assumes that we will fast. But if we're being honest, in most of our Christian lives, fasting is not a thing that we practice very often. I'm assuming most of you actually haven't done very much fasting in your life. One study actually shows that although the Bible and churches and Jesus teach about fasting, the people who are more likely to engage in the practice of fasting are those who belong to religions outside of Christianity. It actually says that, in fact, people who belong to religions outside of Christianity are twice as likely as Christians to engage in the practice of fasting. And Jesus doesn't say you have to fast. He doesn't command us to fast, but he assumes that his followers will fast because he was fasting as well, right? But he also assumes that we're going to mess up. Jesus knows that fasting is hard, and he assumes that we're going to mess up. He assumes that we are going to have some bad reasons to try fasting. He assumes that we are going to use fasting for the wrong things, to maybe try and show off or get people's attention, or maybe even to control God, or a way for them to show God that they are worthy so that he will begin to do the things that they want him to do. But that's not the case. Jesus is the only one who can make you worthy. You cannot control God. Jesus makes you worthy. Jesus saves you. Fasting can't do any of those things. You don't need to fast to make yourself worthy before God. Jesus does that for you. So what is fasting? In Scripture specifically, fasting refers to the voluntary abstaining from food for spiritual purposes. And here's the thing, fasting has less actually to do with not eating food and more to do with our spiritual lives. Dallas Willard, this brilliant Christian philosopher, actually calls fasting feasting on God. That's how he describes fasting. It is feasting on God. It's less to do with us not having food or not going on a computer or not watching things on social media, and it has more to do with us pursuing after God, desiring Him, chasing after Him, being satisfied and fulfilled and finding meaning in Him. So when we think about it that way, fasting isn't just limited to food. You could fast from all sorts of different things, from the computer, from binging Netflix, from social media, from your phone. You can fast from all sorts of things, but they must be for a spiritual purpose. Now, in our consumeristic, feel-good culture, fasting just sounds crazy, right? It's ridiculous. But think of it this way. We are constantly filling our lives with more and more things. We're constantly pursuing meaning and significance and freedom and joy and all of these different things, and they are constantly letting us down. They're constantly letting us down. And the thing is, we will never stop. There's always something new. There's always something better that we are looking to find ultimate meaning in. But in fasting, what we do is we temporarily remove these things from our lives and we pursue that ultimate meaning in the only thing that can truly satisfy us. The only thing that can truly satisfy us is God Himself. And in fasting, we remove those things from our lives so that we can pursue more of God. Fasting is less about denying yourself and more about satisfying yourself. Fasting is less about physical pain and more about spiritual pleasure. Fasting is less about removing our desires and more about pursuing them. We fast because we want something better. We fast because we want more of God, because He and He alone can satisfy. So the question is, are you willing to remove those good things from your life temporarily so that you can find ultimate satisfaction in Him? He alone can satisfy. He alone can fulfill all of those needs and wants in your life. Now, Jesus assumes that His followers will fast, but we also see that He expects that they will fast. He literally says that they will fast when He is gone. Matthew 9:14-15 says this, "Then the disciples of John came to Him, saying, 'Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?' And Jesus said to them, 'Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast.'" When Jesus was around, He didn't expect his crew or His disciples to be fasting right then and there. Why would He? God was literally in their presence, in the flesh, there and then. They were currently in that feasting state, right? God was with them. They didn't really need to fast. But once He left, now the time has come. We are in that time right now where He is expecting that His followers will fast because we are desiring for more of Him. We want more of Him. Only He can satisfy. So we should be fasting. So what does fasting accomplish? Why do people fast in the Bible? Because fasting is all over the Bible from beginning to end. Why are people fasting? Donald Whitney is this great author, and he lists a ton of reasons why people fast. I'll read some of them off to you. To strengthen prayer, to seek God's guidance, to express grief, to seek deliverance, to express repentance, to humble oneself, to express concern for the work of God, to minister to the needs of others, to overcome temptation, to dedicate oneself to God, to express love and worship to God. There is a long list of reasons why people in the Bible fast. For one day, for many days, for 40 days, people fast for all sorts of reasons. But in the rest of our time, I just want to give you 2 reasons why I think fasting might be helpful for us today. So first, fasting reveals what's going on inside us. And Richard Foster has this great quote. He says, "Fasting reveals the thing that controls us." It reveals the thing that controls us. And I know for you guys, you're in high school, you were trying to make a name for yourself. You're trying to find your identity. You're trying to figure out who you are. And this can be a big weight to carry. This can be a lot. So you have a bad day at school and you go home and all sorts of thoughts are flying through your head. The script is always the same. I'm a screw up. I'm a mess up. I'm never going to be good enough. He or she is never going to be that into me. This is why I didn't make it onto that team. This is why they don't want me in that club. You're constantly beating yourself up and you're saying that you are a failure. The script is always the same. And so what happens when we go to these thoughts? What happens when we have a bad day and we end up at home? Well, you go to whatever is going to provide you comfort. Maybe for you, it's food. Maybe for some of you, it's binging Netflix. Maybe for some of you, it's playing video games all night long. Maybe for some of you, it's social media. What is that thing that you go to for comfort? What is that thing for you? We are constantly looking to all of these other things to provide ultimate comfort for us. Food, Instagram, whatever it is, we're looking for comfort in only the place that we are supposed to find comfort in God. He provides ultimate comfort for us. And for a lot of us, we need to understand that even though we love Jesus, even though we love God, oftentimes our compulsions can be too much for us. We're having a bad day and boom, you go back to that thing. Life isn't going the way you planned, so boom, your compulsions kind of take over. And this is why fasting can be such a good tool for us, because fasting removes these things from our lives so that we can focus more on God. We can seek His goodness, we can seek His guidance, we can be in His presence, and we can begin to understand that it is Him and Him alone that provides this ultimate sense of comfort. These things will never measure up compared to God. Second reason, why should we fast? Because Jesus is better and He should be pursued. Jesus is always the better option and He should be pursued. In fasting, we come alongside the psalmists in the Old Testament who are constantly seeking after more of God, pursuing more of Him, thirsting after Him. Psalm 42 says this, "As a deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for you, God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God?" Psalm 63, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, and in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Man, I love the psalmist because this is like an angsty, I want you, God. My soul thirsts after you. I want more of you, God. Give me more. I earnestly seek you. I earnestly desire. I'm hungering. I'm thirsting. Only you and you alone can satisfy, God. Give me more if you have to give. I've tasted and I've seen and it's been good, and I just want more of God. That's what the psalmists are declaring. I'm seeking after you, God. I want more of you, God. I'm thirsting. I'm hungering. Please give me more of you. They are satisfied in God and God alone. And in our culture, we are pitched this vision of life where we just accumulate more and more things, that these things will give us the good life. And fasting is this loud statement. It is a beautiful declaration to the world that we are not satisfied with all of these things that they are trying to pitch at us. We are only satisfied in the one who can truly bring fulfillment, who can truly bring meaning. We are only satisfied in God and God alone. Only He is enough. Everything the world, the good life that it's pitching to us, it is not enough anymore. That version of life is not working for us. This is a loud statement to the world that God and God alone can satisfy. That's why fasting is so important. David Matthees, he has this great quote. He's an author and a brilliant writer. He says, "Fasting reveals the measure of food's mastery over us, or television, or computers, or whatever we submit to again and again to conceal the weakness of our hunger for God." To conceal the weakness of our hunger for God. And she remedies by intensifying the earnestness of our prayer and saying with our whole body what prayer says with the heart. I long to be satisfied in God alone. You see, fasting is less of a statement about food. It's less of a statement about video games or Netflix or whatever it is you were leaving behind. For a Christian, fasting is saying that there is nothing that is more good. There is nothing that is better. There is nothing that is more satisfying than God and God alone. Jesus is better, and He is worthy of being pursued. So we've seen a lot of things today. Jesus expects His followers to fast. He actually says that we will fast, right? And fasting is less of a statement about food. It's less of a statement about our computers or our social medias or Netflix or whatever it is. And it's more a statement about how good God is and how we want to pursue Him. We want Him to be the thing that fulfills those deepest desires in our hearts. So we got some homework. I want us to do a self-inventory, to look within ourselves and reflect and ask yourself, what is that thing that you look to for comfort? When you're having a bad day or things just aren't going your way, what's that thing that you go to for comfort? Maybe it is food. Maybe it's video games. Maybe it's Instagram or social media or whatever, you name it. What is that thing for you that you look to for comfort? Pick a day this week and fast from that thing for the day, for like 12 hours. Maybe it's food, maybe you just don't eat for the day. Maybe it's video games, maybe you just don't play for the day. Maybe it's social media and you just don't log on for the day. Whatever it is, fast that thing. And don't just fast for the sake of fasting. Fast for spiritual purposes. So whenever you feel that urge within you to go to that thing, maybe you're feeling hungry and you want to eat. Maybe you feel like you just want to whip out your phone and go on social media. Instead of just not doing those things, fill that time with God time. Fill it with prayer. Fill it with reading your Bible. Fill it with having good conversations with people. Fill that time with other things that point you back to God, because He alone can satisfy you. So that's our practice this week. I'm praying for you guys. I hope it goes well, and enjoy.